It is 6:30. I would like to bring to order the Monday, September 19th, 2022 meeting of the Select Board. And we will do a roll call vote of all those in attendance. Brian Solacey.
Yes.
John Round.
Yes.
Kathy Bellata.
Yes.
And Harrison.
What happens if I say no?
Then you're not here.
Okay, yes.
And Becky Jakes. So we have a full board and we are being recorded by 1623 Studios. And first on the agenda this evening, 375th Committee and Gift of Elementary School Photos. Tom and Sue?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. Sue and I are here representing the 375th Committee this evening. I know you think like, oh, that should have ended a couple of years ago, but it was only a year ago this week that we were having the two final activities, the tea, and this coming Saturday was the parade. We're still mucking through some of the end things. At the end of the celebration, the committee had raised enough money through fundraising to have some excess funds. And with that excess funds, the members of the committee were able to propose ideas or projects that we might do. The members of the committee then reduced that number and then voted. Basically, many of our projects have to do with the history of the town of Manchester. Tonight, we're going to present two photographs of the Memorial School to the Select Board and to the town. One photo of the Memorial School that was built in 1953, and yes, I walked into it in 1954, going to Ruth Ryan's kindergarten class, and the second photo of the brand new Memorial School just opened in 2021. These two photos are both taken by Barbie Almy. Barbie was very important to both of us in terms of making sure to have the photos taken, printed, got one of the photos down to Chuck at Northeast Frameworks, and then he made both of the frames for them. Because we couldn't get the second photo until the building was done of the new Memorial School. And when you see that, you'll see some of the work she's done. She spent a tremendous amount of time balancing out what was in the frames, and then actually took it upon herself to get it to someone to mount the picture and close in the frame at her own expense. So we really owe a great debt to Barbie for the work she did. We're hoping that this blank space on the wall over there will be a nice place for these photos to sit, and we hope that people in the Select Board and people who come to your meetings will be able to see them. People who come in here for other boards and commissions meetings will be able to see them. And if they get up fast enough, even those people who come in for early voting starting next week can see them. So we'll show you the two photographs.
You should take that one.
Okay.
You should go the new one.
Okay, I'm the newer, okay.
Yeah, I get the old one.
So
The old one.
Oh, look at those.
Wow. Yeah, they're nice.
Oh.
So this photograph, this building is so long
Mm-hmm.
that to take a picture that would fill this, it would be about 50% sky, 10% building, and 40% pavement. So Barbie came up with the idea. We went to the schools and got the architect to send his drawing along of the same side of the building, and then put the name of the building in the middle. So
Those
we
are
have,
wonderful.
have these two photographs. They are for the town, and we hope that you will appreciate them.
I'm sure they will be greatly appreciated and treasured, and thank you so much for all you've done with the 375th Committee,
Just leave them right
and Barbie as well for
here. Can we leave them right here?
the photos. Yes. Would you like to turn them around, or do you want to leave them last side out? I'm not sure.
I don't wanna-
Oh, those are wonderful.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Tom, I'm curious, when was the photo of the old Memorial School taken?
Probably,
Obviously
when
not
I was
recently.
on the board, because I asked Barbie to
Okay.
take it, hoping that we'd be able to get a picture up here, so I'd say it's probably 5 or 6 years ago.
Okay.
Was that with the park that they put in right out front?
Yeah, the little reading park out
Yes.
front, yes.
Yeah. Wonderful. Greg, do we have a letter drafted, a letter of appreciation for Barbie?
Yeah, certainly will.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, and I'd love it if you all stayed, but I understand dinner calls, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Always great to see you too.
I know this is kind of like wishing you good luck, but you have to wear, I hope you have a short agenda.
There you go.
Yes, thank you.
Have a good night, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom, thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Thank you so much. Bye now.
Okay, next is the drought update. We are a little ahead of schedule here. So, do you want to do, did everybody get a chance to read the minutes?
Yes.
Okay, would we like, anybody want to make a motion
Move
to
to
approve?
accept the minutes of September 7th.
Second.
Okay, moved by Ann Harrison, seconded Brian Solacey. Brian,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
and I recuse myself because I was not here, or I abstained. Okay, do we want to designate the harbor department items as surplus? Does everybody have?
Move to designate the listed harbor department items as surplus.
Second.
Okay, moved by Ann Harrison, seconded Kathy Bellata. Roll call vote.
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
and Becky votes yes. Okay, moving right along. Proclamation for the, actually, Water Resource Protection Task Force consultant approval. Did everybody have an opportunity to read over that? Okay, may I have a motion?
Motion to, motion.
Okay, motion made to approve the Water Resource Protection Task Force consultant approval of the monies. Okay, moved by John Round, seconded by Ann Harrison.
Brian had already seconded.
No, I didn't second this one.
Okay, fine.
I was
John
trying to,
did.
I was trying to slow
Okay,
down.
fine.
Ann,
Yes, yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Brian, Becky says yes. Okay, and approve the proclamation for Manchester Essex Rotary's 20th anniversary.
I move to,
Approve.
accept and approve.
Okay,
Second.
okay, moved by Brian, seconded by John. Roll call vote. Ann,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Becky says yes. It's unanimous. We still have 2 minutes.
Excuse me, Deb, I'll present that next Wednesday.
Okay.
Do we, is this something that we should all be?
No, if you want to, it's, yeah, I'm a member of the Rotary, and that's their.
I think that would be nice to do, and I
By all
also,
means, everyone's invited.
and I think it's nice that you present it.
Yes.
So that's, yeah. And if you wouldn't mind just sending around the time for that
Okay.
and all the, do you have glasses?
Hmm?
Are those new glasses? Oh, there we go, okay. Just checking.
I could change things up.
I thought
Except
you
for my,
might
except for my,
change.
except for my chair.
Okay. All right, just checking there. We still have 2 minutes. Do we want to do any of the liaison updates?
Mine's
Anybody
very
have-
short.
Okay, go ahead.
For the Conservation Commission, I just learned that they approved eelgrass control, and their next
Where?
meeting, wherever there's eelgrass,
Okay.
under the water. And their next meeting is later this month. The school committee meets tomorrow, and I missed this council on aging.
Thank you. So we're meeting 9:20, school committee. Okay. Brian, any updates from you?
Just to follow up on the email that Cheryl sent. So Parks and Recreation have moved on the pickleball court to go hours 8 to 8 and still investigate some other sound deadening measures. Now, I guess that hasn't been published at this point, so there were a couple of complaints on Thursday or Friday. But, so that's, I mean, they're being proactive as far as that, or reactive, but in a proactive kind of way. Pine Street, the Pine Street Fields, there was a public hearing meeting last week. A lot of positive feedback. I think everything was addressed as far as safety. I had spoken with Chuck Dam earlier, and there will be an extension of the sidewalk to that, the field, and then a crosswalk at that point. And then there's an event at Masconoma Park, a family fun day by Memorial School. This guy's sponsored by Memorial School, that they'll be looking for us for approvals on, as well as a couple of benches. So,
Thank you. That brings us to 6:41, so we can have our drought conditions update. Greg, is that you, or do we have Chuck?
Yeah, no, I can do that for you. Pretty status quo. We may get some good rain tonight, we'll see. To see if the thunderstorms materialize, but certainly we are still significantly behind on total rainfall. But fortunately, the Gravelly Pond and the Lincoln Street well continue to do okay. It's still a little bit above where we were last year at this time. So it's we're real close to being at the same spot. I'm sorry, not last year, the year before.
Okay.
Last year was a wet year, so.
Yeah, if we were above last year, then
Yeah,
we're pumping
yeah,
it back
no,
in.
I'm sorry, last year was a wet year, it's the prior year. And so we're, like I said, we continue to do okay, however, we are still significantly behind, and we continue to ask people to be conservative of water use, and that continues to be the case. We are using less water than we normally do, and so it's helpful that people are taking to heart the request, and so that seems to be working. So we'll continue to monitor the status quo at this point.
Thank you. Any questions, Brian?
None.
Ron?
Yeah, I'm not sure who's working on a graphic of, say, 5-year water, not consumption, but water levels, Gravelly
Right.
Pond. Maybe it was, I don't know if it was Nathan DPW, but somebody.
Right, we talked about that last time.
Yeah, we did, and that would be very helpful, just to put everything in context.
Yes.
In terms of where things are, the water level versus what historically has been.
Is Chuck doing that? Or- Okay.
I think some, yeah.
And do we know when we'll
I know we
see
have all
that?
the numbers, it's just assembling them.
Is there a?
Yeah, hopefully in the next week or so.
Fine.
We'll get that.
Okay. Kathy?
No other questions?
Dan?
No questions.
My only, I know that the numbers show that people have been very responsive and helpful. Have we had any real issues with anybody in town?
Just nothing significant. We've had a handful of violations, but
But
nothing,
that's it. Good.
nothing major. And with follow-up, a reminder and a request to follow the rules seems to be sufficient.
Okay, thank you. Committee reappointment, and we've got 1 minute to wait on that. Is Eileen Buckley on, Greg? Do you see her?
No, I do not.
I did speak to her yesterday. She's all set.
Was she planning on being here, did she say?
No, she didn't say. She
Oh.
didn't say, but she's,
She would like to be reappointed.
yes, she's not to be reappointed.
Well. I don't think that we have any issues with not reappointing her.
I move to reappoint.
Oh, we have to
Um,
wait 1 minute,
1 minute.
Yeah.
Okay.
or so many
You're-
seconds.
You're close enough.
Say it again, Greg?
You're close enough.
Okay, close enough, good. Go ahead, Ann.
Move to reappoint Eileen Buckley to the Board of Registers for a 3-year term ending in 2025.
Second.
Okay, moved by Ann, seconded by Brian, roll call vote. Ann,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
and Becky says yes, it's unanimous. Thank you, Eileen, wherever you are. Next up, we have, committee interviews. Is,
I
Allison?
think they're not until 6, we have another 5 minutes.
okay, then let's go on to,
Allison will be attending virtually.
right.
Yes.
Yes, I was, thank you, I was gonna go ahead and say that, so we have 2 people, but we'll wait for 5 more minutes. Greg, actually, we could do, let's see. Kathy, any updates from you?
Yeah, so the planning board will be here presenting in a few minutes, so I'm not gonna steal their thunder, I'll let them give an update. Regarding dispatch, I don't think I've given an update since Greg and I and the 2 chiefs met in Middleton.
Mm-hmm.
So that went very well. I just can't say how well the team is working. The regional team in Middleton made it a very strong point to say that the Manchester team, both chiefs and their people have been highly responsive. They're on the phone multiple times a day. It's a breath of fresh air. So the team is working really well together. We reviewed a detailed contingency plan that hopefully we won't need to use in the event we lose some staffing and could not maintain our 911 operations, but it was extremely detailed and they did a very nice job with that. We did review the overall schedule and they did a nice job in clarifying which tasks are Manchester's responsibilities versus the regional team's responsibilities, so it was very clear. Both chiefs are on board with what they need to do. The Middleton team has accelerated equipment purchases to try and prevent any schedule slips due to supply chain disruptions. Key things for us is that we're gonna get a monthly progress report,
Nice.
which will include an issues log, I asked for any upcoming decisions or actions that we may need to take,
Mhm.
so we could, kind of get that on our agenda. And when we are ready, we should let them know when we want to engage in some type of public communications plan. So Allison is going forward, preparing a proposed communications plan for us to review when we are ready and when the town is ready to start receiving communications about this effort. So I think we talked about maybe after the first of the year or something,
Right, yes.
Greg, but we should just keep that in mind, that we would want to review that at some point, but they're already off and running, kind of putting together ideas on how to share information with the community and, possibly do a tour or whatever. And then they have scheduled bi-weekly meetings, Greg, that, for the project team?
Right.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, which kind of bi-weekly? Twice a week or every other week?
every other week.
Yeah.
So they're off to a good start.
Okay.
Bi-weekly is every other week, yeah.
So bi-weekly meetings. With that, do we have anything that can go on the website right now?
Not
So
yet. Did
So they are
give you
working
anything?
on a
We asked for
more,
like a high-level
more
timeline.
easily digested timeline.
Yeah.
I mean, the detailed timeline is extremely detailed.
Yes.
Which we don't need on.
Right, so Chris Ryan did show me a draft of a scaled down version of that, which looked good. And so we'll be working on getting that posted.
I think anything that at this point just.
So I think it would be helpful for us to, what would you all like to hear, other than the monthly report we get from them, obviously issues will be escalated in the interim if there are any. Is there anything you would in particular like to see, or would you like to engage in any resident communication before the end of the year? Other than just posting, information on the website? Kind of a
Brian?
high-level progress.
No, I think at this point, we just start to feed the information slowly. Okay, it's digestible, but also be prepared to answer questions, be somewhere on a point where if someone does have a question, we can answer in a timely fashion.
John?
Yeah, no, I'm okay with letting things be kind of incubate for the next several months. It's a long time before this kicks in, and if you start to make noise now, pretty soon people will they'll kind of tune it out. When they should be attentive, I don't know what typical attention span is, but it seems to me that 8-9 months is too long.
Well,
Just a few is
we
fine.
don't need to be making much ado before we need. Ann?
I'd like to see the timeline when it's available.
So Greg, maybe if you would like to share that, because what we might want to see it, do you want to see it before it gets posted, or do you just want?
I'd like to see it.
Yeah, I think we want to see it
Yeah.
before it gets
Yeah.
posted, the redo of the timeline. We don't want the 400-line version that we saw 2 weeks ago. We want
I
the
would like
pretty
to see
one.
the 400-line
You
one.
want to see that one too? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so,
And I would also like to, I would also, definitely the progress reports, and with your, bi-weekly meetings,
Yeah.
I'd love a synopsis.
Right.
If
Okay,
that's, just so that if we're asked a question, we have a little information.
And for that's every 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Every 2 weeks.
I'd like, is there any way of putting a press release out? I mean, it's nice to put out some positive news that, how the town.
well, that's what I'm asking,
I think that
how much do
maybe
we
something, a small
want
little
to start?
something that just says that it's going well and the transition is moving very smoothly. A little kudos to the two public safety officers here in town.
That might not be a bad idea. I mean, maybe once we take a look at the high-level timeline, right, and Tiffany can make it pretty, right, and it's something that could be posted on the website, like she did with the water ban stuff. She made like a nice one-pager, right, and then, to your point, Brian, we could post that on social media, say, and with a little extra, things are going well, and here's the timeline. Is that kind of what you were thinking?
Yeah.
Also, something that could be mentioned in passing during Greg's weekly.
That's right.
Yep.
That's true.
Yep.
Yep, excellent.
Just something
Mhm.
that, because we did say something, we'd be updating.
Yep, that's great.
Okay, this brings us to 6:52. Thank you, Kathy. And committee interviews of Sue Henderson and Louisa McIntosh for Sustainability Committee. Do we have, is Allison on there online?
Well, Allison is on, yeah.
And how about Louisa? Is she?
I'm here.
Hello, Allison.
Hi, Becky.
Has everybody had a chance to read over the information provided to us for the candidates? Okay, Allison, would you like to say anything about your two committee potentials?
You know, to be honest, I haven't actually seen the information they gave you. But I'm, confident that they are both wonderful. And, I know that Louisa has very good qualifications for the committee, and Louisa and they both do. And I just don't know a whole lot about them yet, but they both volunteered in response to my my urgent plea for membership. So, you'll be the judge, but it seems like the situation now is that we're really down to two members. We have Nadia Wetzler and Carly Cook, and Carly's term has actually expired, so I don't even know if she's re-upping. So really, we only have 2, possibly 3 people on the committee. So in order for the committee to move forward, we really need to hire some more people. So that's where we're at right now.
Okay, thank you. So first we have Sue Henderson.
Good evening, I'm Sue Henderson, and I know some of you. I am currently a middle school teacher in Swampscott, science teacher, and English language teacher. My background is I have a PhD in educational research, measurement, and statistics. Back in the 1970s, I worked alongside the Harrises at the Manchester Community Center when we did recycling there, where people actually brought their cans. I worked as a Girl Scout. I think I was working on a recycling badge or something. So I'm, I'm qualified in terms of having a science background. I worked for National Science Foundation as a evaluator for about 10 years. I'm practiced at creating surveys, working on committees, facilitating meetings, and I'd be happy to answer any other questions. I'm passionate about the environment and sustainability and thinking about the big picture and the smaller picture.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you very, very much. Brian, any questions?
No, you have it, I'll do it.
Okay, all right. Excellent.
Not, John?
Yeah, so have you spoken with Allison at all at this point?
Yes, we actually spoke. I stepped out of class today and answered a call. And we spoke briefly over the weekend, so, or before the weekend.
Okay.
So she was ill, she was traveling, so we didn't get to actually sit down and talk about the committee work.
Okay.
And you and I worked on the Historic
Yes, we
District
did,
Commission.
a number of years ago.
Right.
I think, probably
Maybe like
6.
5-6 years ago.
5 or 6 years ago, because I do recall that. So good, so you've had a little participation in town
Yes.
government here.
And I have triplets that are 23 years old, so
Oh.
one is out of college, so I will have more time.
That's how I know you, I remember now.
Yes,
I remember seeing you
hello.
wheeling the triplets
Yes,
around.
yes, so I'm also moved by that. But anyway, I'm happy to serve and,
You're welcome to sit down.
okay, thank you.
Kathy, do you have any
Yeah,
questions?
just a quick question. What do you hope to accomplish as part of the sustainability committee?
Well, I think I would rely on Allison to be the lead, and I don't know what the town goals are right now. As a resident, I have the perception of what we're doing in terms of waste management, sustainability, drought issues, and making people aware, public awareness of these issues, and really kind of getting our public to be more like citizen scientists and understand what's going on, and then they'll be more motivated to make change or cut back or mitigate issues before they become larger issues. So,
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Anne?
I'm overwhelmed, so thank you for volunteering.
okay. Thank you very much.
Well, you asked my question, so that was it. Thank you,
Lined
Sue. And why don't we go ahead and speak with Louisa McIntosh?
So I don't have a background related at all to this opening, but other than the fact that I've lived in Manchester pretty much my whole life, the last 34 years here. And I, since the 1970s, have been recycling and, now gotten to a point where having, being clearing out houses of deceased parents and things, and just like what to do with all the stuff that we don't need, and trying, rather than throwing it away, always trying to reuse, repurpose, things like that. And I feel that it would be great if, you look on the bottom of a plastic something, and most of them I know can't be recycled. I mean, I even listened to a little audiobook all about recycling, and only number 1 and number 2 plastics, and even within those numbers, only some of them get recycled. And I think in some states or some towns, maybe more is recycled. So I've never done anything for the town before, and I've felt badly about it. And when I saw this opening, I was like, yes, that's what I want. So, I'm hoping there are ways to increase availability of recycling. I don't know if that's the case, but anyway, just trying to clean up our environment and reduce the waste.
Well, thank you very much, Louisa. And I do remember when our boys were little and I'd go to your house, there was always reused, recycled. There was evidently that going on. But thank you very much. Brian?
No, I'm good, thank you for stepping up.
She had you, I'll do it.
Could only use that line once.
You can reuse it,
Thank you.
recycle it,
You have
you
your-
know. John?
Yeah, no, thank you for volunteering, Louise, and you kind of ran down a list of a number of things that you're taking initiatives to do, and I assume those initiatives are ones that you're gonna try to promulgate or more expand here, so I'll assume that's your to-do list.
Yeah.
That you'll discuss with fellow committee members, so thank you again.
Just the same question, is there, I mean, you mentioned a lot of focus on recycling. Is there anything else as part of sustainability that you'd like to accomplish by being on the committee?
I mean, there are a lot of things that would be great to accomplish. I mean, I'm also interested in, I have geothermal heating and cooling in my house. I have solar panels. I'd like to get battery, you know, I'd like to be off the grid. There's a lot of stuff that, you know, that's a lot.
That's excellent. I think that's an excellent focus. The team has done so many great things regarding recycling in particular, and there's a bigger world to explore. So excellent. That's great.
Ann?
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Can I-
thank you, Louisa.
Excuse me, Becky, could I just ask one question?
Absolutely.
Because it has been actually extremely difficult to get people to step up, and I'm so grateful to these two for doing, but really it's taken about a year to get new recruits. And as a result, the terms are expiring in 2024. So if we could, if they are approved for the committee, could their terms be extended to 25? Because, you know, otherwise we're just not getting the full time span that they're entitled to, because it's supposed to be a 3-year term, I think.
Well, I think given that they are, stepping up, for, terms to end in 2022, can we change those terms, or
So
how
we
does
assume that these would be until 25.
Okay, all right.
Yes, because on the website it says 24, and I was assuming we could extend it to 25.
So typically the 3-year term, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that would work. All right, I just want to make sure we're not doing it. And often we wait, think, and come back in 2 weeks. I do not think we need to do that today. So thank you, and may I have a motion to approve Sue Henderson and Louisa McIntosh to the Sustainability Committee for each of them a 3-year term ending in 2025.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, moved by John Round, seconded Ann Harrison, roll call vote. Ann?
yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Becky says yes, it's unanimous. Allison, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Louisa and Sue, welcome aboard, and this is so critical to all of us, so thank you.
I hope you get as much pleasure from contributing to the town as the rest of us do. I think you will.
Thank you again.
Thank
Yes.
you
Thank
for
you
your
very much.
service.
Very much. All right, so next up, we have, what time is it? 7:03, good. We can go to the open meeting law complaint from Lorraine Iavani, dated and received on August 29th, 2022. And do we need to vote on a formal acknowledgement, Greg, of that? Or is this,
You're formally acknowledging it through your pronouncement just there, so that's fine.
okay, so now we discuss it. Probably best to, is Michelle on?
No, we don't have her.
Okay, so we just discuss what we read.
Yes.
Okay.
So she reviewed the complaint, town
Is
council.
Lorraine Ivani on? I'm sorry to interrupt.
I don't see her unless she's on by phone.
Lorraine, are you?
There's someone just connecting. I think she's usually on an iPhone. That might be her.
Okay. Is there any way to verify whether Lorraine is on or not?
Not if she's not registered with her name.
Okay. All right, well, I just.
Yeah, hello, this is Lorraine Iavani. I am, actually calling in, to listen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lorraine. So what we did, Lorraine, was we acknowledged receipt of your open meeting law complaint, and we're now going to discuss it. Okay,
So town council has prepared a draft response for your review. So a couple of highlights. First, on a technical basis, open meeting law complaints are supposed to be filed within 30 days of the alleged violation. So this is past that date. But putting that aside, town council further examined the headings. So the first complaint was about the June 16th meeting, which was a special meeting that was held at the regional dispatch center, at the North Shore Regional Dispatch Center. And the agenda item stated it was for a tour and discussion of their services. So town council felt that that's indeed what happened. And so she feels that it's appropriate to say that there was no violation there, as the agenda did accurately list what took place.
And the location and,
Right, stated the location.
posted and, yeah.
And so then the second meeting that was implicated in the complaint was the June 21st meeting. And again, the agenda listing was a dispatch update. And so you provided an update at that meeting. You went on to vote to join the regional dispatch at that meeting. Town council notes in the response that it's not required that potential votes be highlighted in an agenda heading. And so the fact that there was a vote is not a grounds for a violation in her opinion. And believes that that is something that the AG's office would uphold as well. And however, as you know, through an abundance of caution, as that phrase is used, you did reaffirm that vote at your August 1st meeting. And in that agenda for the August 1st meeting, it specifically said reaffirm vote to join and to ratify the MOU. So even if the AG's office were to find the June 21st meeting defective in terms of its agenda listing, the cure is to redo it, and you've already done that. So that's in a summary format. That's what the letter contains. If you have further points you'd like it to make, then she can make those changes. Otherwise, you can vote to have town council submit the letter on your behalf as written.
Okay, thank you. No, I think it's very thorough in what it covers. I'm glad it brings in the emails regarding the meeting at the rec center. Ann, do you have any comments or questions on this?
no, I don't.
Kathy?
No, I think the response was comprehensive.
John?
Comprehensive would be the word, yes.
Yes.
All the details there.
Brian?
No, I think it's, again, jumping on, comprehensive.
Okay. The chair allows Erica Brown to make comment.
It's not a comment, it's a question, and I'm only asking now, I apologize for interrupting
No.
when I'm, during non-public, but you're on this topic. It was a 5-page letter that KP Law prepared that was extremely thorough. How much money did that cost the town?
Is that something we do now, or would that be something discussed at another time?
Well, if I had the answer, I'd give it to you. I don't have that bill yet.
Or how much does KP charge per hour, or
$220 an hour.
Okay.
So it's
5-page letter? I'll follow up, never mind.
I'm sure it's a few hours.
Okay. May I ask your reason for the question? You don't have to answer that. I'm just asking now.
I just find, I'm just tracking the cost of this type of procedural thing, when
Yes.
it's necessary versus when it's perhaps not necessary versus when it's maybe in between. I just want to start tracking it.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
No. Anne, did you have something
I have,
to
it's
say?
not directly with the letter. I was surprised to learn that there was such a short deadline and that it was not tied to the availability of minutes. It was assumed that if it was an open meeting and you didn't attend, and then you can't complain. Is that?
Well, the recording.
Yeah,
is
I asked the same
posted,
question. I was a little surprised about that too. But there is case law that it is not dependent on the minutes and that it is dependent on the actual posting of the agenda. For this kind of, for this one specifically, asking about or questioning the agenda listing.
Mhm.
So,
Okay. We do tend to post the recordings pretty quickly, is that
but we didn't have a recording of the meeting
at the rec
regional
center?
center.
Okay.
The June 21st one was, yes.
Mhm.
But that was not a Zoom meeting, so we did not have a
Right.
recording.
And we weren't gonna be zooming inside a
No. And
911 center.
state law probably hasn't caught up with Zoom recordings
Mhm.
to recognize them, so, okay,
Yeah. Thank you.
interesting.
Any other questions? Okay,
I move that we notify KP Law that their letter is satisfactory to us and that they should send it to the Attorney General.
Second.
okay, moved by Ann Harrison, second Kathy Bellata, roll call vote, Brian,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
and Becky says yes, it's unanimous, okay. There,
And so we will be sending
this
Ms.
letter,
Giovanni a copy of the same one.
okay. Next up, we have, Sarah, it's a little, are we early?
Yep. I think.
No, 7:10, and it's now 7:12. So is,
We have board and committee updates.
oh, there's Sarah. Planning board update, zoning amendment outreach, number 6. You see, right here?
There, Becky.
Hello, Sarah.
Okay, is that the amended?
you get the
Okay,
amended?
yes, I did have the amended, I'm just looking at the wrong one, I'm sorry.
That's, okay.
These are in the same month.
Hmm?
She's in the same month.
All right. How are you tonight, Sarah?
Fine, thanks.
Excellent. All right.
Okay, great. Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks for having us. I know, I see that we have Ron and at least Mary on as well, so it's not just me. And in speaking with Greg and Kathy Bellata, the focus tonight was to update you on where we are on communications to the town about the zoning changes that are being proposed for the November town meeting. So just to back up, we have a number of zoning changes planned for town meeting. The current language is on the planning board website under zoning changes, so if people are looking for them. There's also a copy at town hall and the library. And we voted to move those forward back in May. We will be revisiting some small things, I think, tomorrow night, and perhaps for the next couple of weeks. But and in addition, the FinCom in May did vote that the articles did not have a financial impact that was subject to their review. So just wanted to also update you or remind you that we did a number of cricket articles in the spring. We created a website and we had public hearings, as well as 4 years of meetings, which have been fairly well attended, given remote meetings and even prior to that. But going forward, we last week at our meeting discussed a working work plan for our work in between now and town meeting, and in that is a engagement communication plan, the goals of which are to make sure that people have the high-level understanding of what we're trying to do, and that is to improve the clarity of our zoning, to do a few policy changes, and to update some administrative things, and to make our zoning comply with case law and state law in a couple of cases. And to do that, we're continuing to update our webpage. We'll be doing some social media posts, and we plan about 4 cricket articles, the first of which has already appeared. We plan to do a direct mail postcard to all postal customers that will direct them to the website, and to inform them that town meeting is coming, and to also invite them to, right now we're calling this an open house, tentatively scheduled for October 13th at the high school. The planning board is still finalizing and has not really discussed the format for that open house, so any questions about how that format would be is conjecture on my part at this point, rather than agreed on by the board. So we will be talking about that in an upcoming meeting and creating a format. We will be doing some sort of a town meeting handout. Hopefully the goals will be met of people understanding that we're doing some zoning changes and the overall intent. And those people who are ambitious and want to read them, they are available now. They're available, like I said, website, library, town hall. And lastly, there's a lot of two last things. There's a lot of information on the planning board's website about some of the history and how these zoning changes linked to the master plan. And we do hope that the selectmen will give us input if you have it, but also that you will endorse the proposed zoning changes at the town meeting. Back to you, Betsy. Becky.
Okay, thank you very much, Sarah. I read through everything that you sent and have attended quite a few of the meetings myself, and know that you all have been diligently working away for years now. Brian, do you have any questions?
No questions, I'll just make a comment. And it's published on the Wednesday ZBA agenda. We'll be discussing, the ZBA will be discussing these as well, and take positions.
Right. This Wednesday?
Yes. It's on the-
Okay,
it's on the
not aware of that, but we'll try to have somebody there to answer questions. Great, fabulous.
Okay, thank you. John?
Yeah, no, I've reviewed the information on the website. I think it's pretty complete as far as we've gone. This is a very difficult type of issue to try and present. Are you at the special meeting going to have some sort of a presentation or slides to show what you're talking about as you work through this? Or how is that going to work, or have you not decided yet?
I think it's not, the board has not made a collective decision about that, and we're trying, I know that the board wants to make a collective decision on these things. I think there's also the challenge when we tried to think about that for the, in the past, there is a challenge about making sure that it is legible for everybody and is not confusing. One of the things, again, that we have done on the draft, on the material that is currently posted, and I have talked to Alan about whether he wants to do this, is that the motions, I believe, will have line numbers on them so that at least the conversation about the specifics of a particular part of at one of the motions for one of the articles will be easier to navigate in the dense material. So that's one change that we haven't done before that I hope we will be able to affect. But as for the presentation at town meeting, which was your question, the board has not decided that, and I think there's a little work to figure out how to make it really effective.
Okay, well, I do have a concern because there's a lot of stuff that moves and there's some stuff that's new, and to try and get that point across to everybody is a challenge. And, you know, and you've got to put that in the context of how the motions are going to be written, so that it's addressed in a sensible order. But I assume that the workshops and all of the other promotional, or I wouldn't say promotional, but informational activities that you've got here will help to kind of clear up what, you know, how you might want to approach it, so.
Right. We had a working session end of last week. We added, our full board needs to look at it, but some clarity on the website about whether a change is an administrative change for clarity or a policy change. So hopefully people will feel confident in moving along with us on some of the administrative changes, and that we can keep in the discussion for policy is obviously where we would want to spend time and hear from folks, and there may be differences of opinion, of course, on policy.
Mhm.
Thank you, John.
Okay, good.
Yeah, just two questions, Sarah. You just mentioned the little subcommittee meeting that Ann and I participated in on Friday regarding the summary of changes table with the risks. Is that going to be brought before the whole planning board tomorrow night so that it can be posted, or has it been?
Yeah, I have to find, I have, I'm not sure it'll come tomorrow night. I've gotten to getting it finalized or ready, you know, cleaned up. But it will certainly come before the planning full board before we post it, so.
Okay, that was, thank you.
Yeah.
That was question one. And then question two, on the work plan, I just wanted to confirm the dates with Greg. So I think it's just important on their timeline, we're clear when the final, I guess, warrant that we need to approve is gonna come to this board, right?
Mhm.
And is that 10/17 the correct date?
It is, you may, you know, need to do, if we were to get, well, that's the deadline, I'm sorry.
That's
the
what I'm asking, is that the deadline? I
That's
just want to confirm that is the
10/17 is the
deadline.
deadline for petition articles. So there may be,
Is this a petition article?
no,
Okay,
but all I'm saying is, the goal is for you to finalize the warrant on the 17th.
okay,
So if we get something on the 17th, we'll have to do some last minute editing, but the goal is to have it finalized on the 17th.
okay, because I did want to bring to the board's attention, you know, the items highlighted in yellow. I believe, Sarah, the planning board was going to just take a quick look at the articles again and two different meetings to review them in the context of feedback that's already been received from the public, to see if anything needed to be tweaked. So what's published on the website right now is probably close to the final version, but not, it could change based on those two meetings. Is that correct?
Yeah, and we intend to keep the website up to date, so if there's been a change, I think we would note that this is a change version that was updated you know, we'll try to make that clear, so that if somebody spent the time to review an old version, they would be able to know what, but,
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
That was
you,
it.
Kathy. Ann?
Other than saying that it would be nice to see their articles before the 17th, at one of our regular meetings before the 17th, so that we can get home before midnight. But we would like,
I'm hoping that we can do that well before the 17th.
excellent.
Thank you, Ann. One of the issues, I think the biggest difficulty the planning board is facing is with trying to have the bylaws easily understandable to the public. When you're reading a bylaw and not having it in context as it relates to whatever is before the planning board and how that bylaw is used, it can lose a little of why it's there. And you all have really done yeoman's duty in trying to get this digestible for the public. Presume, that's PREZOOM, not presuming something. We'd all meet in public and the applicants would be there and the bylaws were fairly straightforward in their applications. I think it's a little harder to try to help the general public become educated on how the planning board bylaws work. But I think you all are doing a very good job, and I just want to give you a big thanks for the myriad hours, days, and years that you all have put into this. Thank you.
Thank you. Just one thank you, Becky. I mean, a lot of that predates me, so, and has work that was done by members who are no longer members of the board, so. But one, quick thing is the tentative date for this, open house is perhaps, either October 12th or October 13th. It's still being finalized. So I think, I said October 13th sort of definitively, but we're still working that out.
So you assume that there will be no changes as a result of the open house?
The intent, correct. Wow, that's my assumption. I think we would have, we do have a little bit of time, but I think the intent of the open house is to give people the opportunity to understand the bylaws. At least that's my personal opinion, and talk them through with us and that kind of thing. We've had plenty of opportunities for people to give us input, and we've had a lot of input. And we have made changes based on that input. We heard a lot of things in the public hearings, and all along. So,
I would say to Ann's point, though, if the board, the select board, is being asked to go on as supporting the changes, I think as soon as we could have those to look at and go over, the better. We can always read them independently and then have a meeting, other than a regularly posted meeting to discuss.
yeah, we can get you copies immediately. I mean, that you won't.
So I have a suggestion. I think a good place to start would be that summary document that we worked on Friday. As soon as that's finalized, Sarah, I think that would be a good place to start to make sure the board has that. And if you haven't reviewed the table explanation of changes, I think it would be helpful. Because it does explain the why. I'm not sure the latest version is posted.
That's what I'm
Right,
wondering, because
right.
I'm online looking at
Yeah.
the summary and it does, I don't think it's.
Right.
I we're revising that.
Yeah, it has to go before the whole planning board. It was just a subcommittee that met on Friday. So once it gets approved by the entire board,
Right.
then we can all see that. And then I think the other suggestion would be is if it looked as though there were two different places on the work plan where you were, where the planning board was gonna finalize the articles. So we could break it up into two meetings. I'm not sure what meetings follow, what select board meetings follow those planning board meetings, but we could try and split it up if that would, get those early ones done and talk about those. Do we support those? And then when they're ready with the second set, we could meet on them separately if we have time to do it.
I think typically what, and that's
Yeah.
that's a good idea. Typically what we do is, does anybody have anything they'd like to pull out? And then
Okay.
otherwise we just, can have our meeting and
Okay.
go forward
All
that way. I don't think, Sarah, that the planning board needs to send more than just an email update that says go ahead onto the website and we can look them over there, and if we want to print them out, we can. Does that make
Right,
sense, rather than?
Absolutely.
Well, we can also, don't forget there's a copy at, probably the easiest thing to do is go to the town clerk and make a copy rather than trying to print them all out. But you can
No,
decide.
I won't print them.
Anyway, we'll work with you to make sure you have a set to review, and what is online today is what we have voted in May, and as we update them, if we do, then we will certainly let you know.
Okay, that would be good, because any changes or updates, that would be great. Well, thank you very much, and Sarah, please thank the entire board for all the work and time you all have been putting into this.
Thanks for having us and for your interest in this. It's great.
Ann, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, I just wondered if there's anybody from the public who had any questions.
Well, I think that would go, rather than come to us, any questions for the planning board should go to a planning board meeting.
Okay.
Is my thought.
Great.
Okay.
Let me just mention this, and it's probably gonna throw a monkey wrench into everything. I think we've established I'm the lowest common denominator. All right,
What do you mean?
as far as looking at simply things, look at things simple. Is there a chance we have a case study for every change, and then lay it out in real terms?
What is the function of this case study that you're saying?
But people that, there's a lot of words here,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And they are confusing, okay? If we can simplify it, and for instance, the ADUs, okay? The change, and then discuss what exactly John Smith wants to do.
Are you saying for the planning board to do that?
Yes.
Okay, this is where, and to use your words, let's let the professionals do their job.
Okay.
We have our planning board, this is what they study. It's sort of, what you're asking is to take any law and put it into layman's terms. So
But the laymen are gonna be the ones that are voting.
say it again?
But the lay people are gonna be the ones that are going to be making these decisions.
Absolutely. That's where the lay people are voting to approve what the professionals put forward.
I'm just.
And I understand what you're saying, but when you say case law.
Maybe not case law, case study, come up with a scenario, okay, that addresses these 10 or 12
Have
changes.
you read every single bylaw?
I've read a lot of them, yes.
I don't know if you'd have to do every
Have you read
one.
this?
but
I
if you
think to do,
You
it's,
picked out a handful of them and did an example project and how it would
I-
benefit or be more difficult under those.
That's what I'm.
Right.
and I'm just looking at it from the point of someone who's been on the planning board. And it's, for me, it's hard to wrap my head around what you're asking, but I'm not a member of the planning board anymore.
I just have a suggestion. Well, a question, then a suggestion. So Brian, I would ask that if you haven't taken a look at the summary table that they put together, what they're gonna be publishing is a little bit simpler. That's what we spent like 3 hours doing
Okay.
on
No,
Friday.
I know it's
It's to
simple.
simplify,
I'm
so
looking
you're
at
right.
simple, yeah.
The matrix they put together and trying to explain the changes and the risks, a bunch of us got together on Friday, tried to simplify it. So I would use that as your starting point. And then, if a use case would be helpful, and if the planning board thought that was a good idea,
Mhm.
they might do it just on the articles that involve land use changes, because the majority of them are administrative or.
And I'm not talking, that's
Right,
exactly
right,
what
so
I'm
that's what
talking
I'm just
about.
saying, it's probably like 2 or 3, that might encounter, it might be worth
Mhm.
some extra work to try and get people to understand. And whether it's pictures and zoning charts and say, hey, this change only
Mhm.
affects that zone, pictures are really good, and a scenario might be helpful, but it would be limited to just those controversial ones which involve real changes, if they were able to do it.
And the visual, getting back to what you're suggesting, a visual would
Visual would be
probably
helpful.
be a good idea to be applied in the way you're suggesting, Brian. However, that's a suggestion that we could, no, and again, I'm, from having been on that board, to wrap my head around that, it's just got my head
Okay.
spinning.
And
But
my
I'm
point
not-
is that you have experience on the board, and the majority of us don't.
Yep, and it's the learning curve of a board or committee. And it's a nice way of trying to help people to understand, and giving the graphics certainly can't hurt.
Can I just jump in for a second?
Absolutely.
I think Brian makes a good suggestion. One of the challenges is that there's broad applicability of the bylaws, and it's hard to generalize a scenario, and you kind of go down to we've been to what I call it, like a scenario death trap. Well, what about this, and what about that, and what about this? And so that's a challenge that we want to avoid, because it's not productive. But perhaps some examples may be helpful. I think so that's so the other thing is that if you folks as a board need more time or one-on-one understanding them, I think that would be a good use of time, because I think your endorsement of these zoning changes will go a long way to giving people confidence that we've thought about these things. A lot of them are making things clearer, bringing them in compliance case law. The other one is, performance standards rather than prescriptive standards. Those are, much more current way of thinking about things when we have a special permit. And then we have a couple of policy changes that that I think are the controversial, where people may have differences of opinion, and I find the scenarios sometimes get weighted, and it's very hard to have a kind of an impartial scenario, but we can think about it. I'm just struggling because it's so that we can talk about it as a board, and if certainly board members are able to help us do that, would be great.
No, I understand, Sarah, and I think that you're giving the perfect example, how it's difficult to understand, and it is, and that's maybe.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's complex, but we're hoping to make it easy to understand. By categorizing things, as Kathy said, with the table, and being clear about the significant pieces of the change. So hopefully our table that when the board goes through it will help to do that, and like I said, town meeting handout and the cricket articles. So that's the goal, and the open house.
I think the one-on-one is a very good idea for some of the board members who are not as familiar with how the planning board bylaws come into play. And I would say that if we can understand it and get behind it, that could go a long way. And so the one-on-one, I think, would enable people to perhaps get a better grasp of what is trying to be done and what is being asked of the select board. Agreeable? Is everybody? Okay. All right. Wonderful.
Thank you for your interest and support on this.
Thank you all, to the entire planning board. Thank you. Anybody else have any other things for planning board before we say goodnight? Okay, good night, planning board. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Next on the agenda, we have the harbor space master plan. And Bion? I saw you there. Where's Bion? There he is.
I'm here.
Hello, Bion.
Good evening. Whoop, can you
Good
hear me?
evening to you too.
So originally, we had put this on the agenda at the request of an engineering firm that has been retained by some homeowners, property owners around the harbor. In a letter, they requested a meeting to talk about the possibility of moving forward with the harbor master plan. They're not able to be here tonight, so they have asked that we put this on the agenda for the October 3rd meeting. But if you wanted to have some background information, you could have Brian perhaps provide some of that.
Okay. And this is the TRC, is that the TRC company?
Yes.
When did we find out they couldn't make tonight?
Confirmed on late Thursday or Friday.
Okay, thank you. So they wanted to reschedule to go on the agenda for the 3rd. So that is all that we have on there. So that means we do not have anything to discuss regarding Bion, the harbor.
I have a question about this.
You could get some background information if that would be helpful in preparation for the 3rd, or you can wait for the 3rd. It's up to you.
Kathy,
I just have a quick question.
Yeah.
I'm just a little unclear as to the scope of what is usually included in a harbor master plan. Is it on water? Does it include on shore? You know, can somebody elaborate what the intended scope is?
Bion's nodding.
I think Brian could probably
Okay,
provide some
awesome.
examples of what other towns have done.
Yes, that would be helpful.
So when I was the Kittery Main Harbor Master, we did have a master plan that had been developed long before I started, and it was something that was revisited once a decade. When we talk about comprehensive, we're talking about everything to do with what touches the Manchester waterfront, not just moorings, not just placement of moorings, but development, resources such as shellfish. Is there a chance that in the course of the lifetime of the document, the shellfish might reopen? Eelgrass beds, their help. Maybe types of moorings that are being used. Seawall condition. It is a massively comprehensive document. The town would be wise to hire a consulting firm to develop this product, and the role of the harbor department will be really small.
Okay, yeah, and thank you for that. The reason for my question was the document that's been provided seemed extremely focused on the on-water. And that's fine if that's what the intent is. If the intent is to go beyond and start touching shoreside, activities, that could spill into other, the purview of other boards and committees. So I was really, if we decide we're gonna do something, I just think clarifying the scope is critically important.
Right. So other boards would other departments would definitely need to be involved. DPW, for example, Park and Recs, they have the beaches, and really the newest thing that's showing up in these documents when communities are putting them together is sea level rise and how it's going to affect the community. So it is extremely comprehensive, and it does cross departments and boards, and will require some real serious consideration.
Question, I assume these are public documents from the various communities. I'm wondering it could be sent just a sample document. I'm not planning on reading it, but I am planning on just perusing and say, what are the topics that are in here?
So Brian has sent me a couple of examples.
Oh, he does.
I can
Can
forward.
you
Yes,
send that to
yes.
the board here? We just want to kind of, maybe just look at the table of contents, but.
We appreciate your honesty.
I think there's South Shore communities, but the idea is just for you to get an understanding of what this document looks like. And it really ought to be part of the community's larger master plan. It should be a document within that.
Right, I guess my only comment, these other communities, are they interested in increasing tourism or not? Because depending on the culture of the community, the harbor master plan would look very different, like in a Newburyport versus a community that wanted to be a little bit quieter. So, if we lean towards the quieter side, I hope we can get some of those examples. Because otherwise, I think it could be misunderstood, what we're trying to do, or maybe not.
Or another way of looking at it is, as, you do the surveys prior, but also you're bringing options to the town.
Yep.
So if you do option, follow this track,
Mhm.
it's limiting boating tourism. You can offer potentially
Well,
different scenarios.
It sounded like the harbor master plan was not centered around boating, but anybody just who might access the harbor. Bion used the word development, so to me that meant development of the shoreline, which anybody who does, you don't need a boat to, have a harbor walk or whatever. So I just wanted to understand the, like you said, the topics and options. I just don't want things to get too scary too fast.
Absolutely.
I think that,
The idea of the document is that it is all-inclusive.
Right.
It's looking what the resources are, how they've been developed, and then gives the community something that it can use to decide how to best move forward to maintain the harbor.
Right.
And the
Yeah, I
water.
think that- I'm sorry, I think that
Brian.
with the expansion of the Reed's Park docks and the expectation that there's gonna be more of a boating community, more of a transient boating community coming in, I think it's important that we take a look at how best to manage, I don't wanna use the word exploit, but to utilize what Manchester has to offer.
Well, and it's not just the transient boaters,
Right,
it's
right.
also looking at our working boats that we have, the lobster
Fishermen.
people, fishermen, right, and I mean, that's what Manchester, in terms of Europeans, has always been about, is fishing. And,
I think there's an exciting opportunity here.
It is.
Right, and I think that we ought to manage it, and we should, rather than, we tell the consultants what we envision, and have them develop a plan according to that.
At some point, we need to figure out what our goal is.
yes.
Exactly,
Yep.
exactly.
That's the first step.
Well, and
I
this
don't
is,
think we're there yet.
well, but I believe, and Bion, correct me if I'm not correct on this, that the harbor master plan brings information that provides options. Okay, he's nodding yes.
That's correct. It will, the document in Kittery, it didn't lay out the plan for the town, but it very clearly showed the town what it had, what resources and amenities were in place already, the condition of them, what needed to be done to ensure that they remain viable. And it's not a document to tell you what to do, it's a document to tell you where you are. The harbor is a complex place, and no one person really understands everything that's going on in all parts of it. the document does that.
I guess then I wouldn't call it a plan, I would call it a survey. Because a plan suggests to me,
Right. I understand where Ann is going. When I think of Manchester's master plan, it's a document that outlines what our vision is. What I hear Bion proposing, which I agree with, is it's an evaluation of what we have. Okay, and that's obviously an excellent first step. And then we could refer to our master plan. Okay, what did we say we wanted our harbor to be, or the level of tourism, or whatever? But to Bion's earlier point, we've got to connect the ultimate harbor master plan to our town master plan. But the first step is, what do we have? Is it in good shape, bad shape? You know, what are the opportunities? And then
what risks does it face?
what risks,
Right.
yep, and then we engage the town and say, okay, here's where we're at, what do we wanna be when we grow up?
So to that end, and not just looking for the moorings and anchoring and docks, what would our next step be to actually have a harbor master study done? Is that something that, there's Bion, go ahead, take it away, Bion.
So I did send forward those two examples. I also sent a list, I think it's maybe it's four different consulting groups that could be contacted to provide some detail and what it might cost to put such a document together. So I would start with looking at the documents that are provided, see if there is real interest in doing that, and then reaching out to these consulting firms to
So that
see what they
sounds
have
like an
to offer.
RFI.
I'm sorry, go ahead and finish, Bion.
Just see what they have to offer the town, see what they would do.
Thank you. Kathy, I'm sorry, what were you saying?
And that sounds like an RFI. So we take a look at what these documents are, we pick what we might want to include in our high-level first thought of scope, and we send an RFI out to a bunch of consulting firms, and they could give us a ballpark.
Is that what we do, or is that through Bion,
I mean,
through the harbor?
the town,
Not
so
through me.
Bion, no?
Nope.
Yep.
No.
And there we go. Okay.
This is far too comprehensive for what I'm capable of.
And reaches
My
beyond.
wife could do it, I cannot. I'm not, harbor masters don't put these plans together, I can tell you.
Oh, no, I didn't mean that you do it.
No,
I was wondering.
no, I know.
Okay, thank you.
But to oversee it. Smarter people like
Okay.
you.
Brian, what was your?
No, I agree with Kathy, an RFP or an RFI is, I think, the next step, once we determine what the information we're trying to.
Right.
Yeah, this obviously is a separate project from this TRC thing, that's
Right.
a separate thing. And I think we've got to hear what's going on with this, because that'll feed into what some of our opinions are, as well as a couple of these sample, we've got two, or whatever you've got, we'd like to see.
And you can, there's a
See
lot
what
of
the
town,
story
a lot
is,
of
but that's,
coastal communities with harbors will have the harbor plans on their
Okay.
website, so.
so it's perhaps a near-term project, but it's not an immediate project. We've got some other things to deal with here.
That's the medium bit right there.
Yeah, this is immediate.
But I think that I don't want to put this off until next year. I think that
No.
we can start thinking about this. And if you wouldn't mind forwarding that info to us, Greg.
Yeah,
and then we
absolutely.
can
And
go
you
from
can think of it, different phases as well.
Right.
So
Yeah.
phase one is gonna be, fact finding, and what are existing conditions, what has the history been, what have the trends have been?
Right.
So that's sort of some baseline data, then that will inform your thoughts on the next phase.
I think this is directly related to the goals we established at our last offsite.
Yes.
It covers
Yeah.
a couple of different ones, right?
Yes.
And so this is one way to look at tackling a piece of what we said we were going to do this year.
Exactly, okay. why don't we, put this, can we come back to this at our second October meeting?
Why don't?
No, we're gonna be working on,
We're, October 3rd, we're hearing from TRC. We may as well discuss it after we've heard what they have to say.
okay, so we can, I also would like, if we can get a representative from, representatives from both Crockers and Manchester Marine, I think that would be, if we've got TRC coming before us, discussing what's being proposed by the two yards, marinas in town, I think it's only fair that they be here as well. So we will have, okay, both of those, 10-3. All right, any other comments on the harbor master plan discussion? All set? Okay, Bion, thank you very much.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
You too. All right, next.
Bye now.
Bye. Next up on our agenda is the select board office hours. Okay, and as we had discussed, we talked about first and third Thursday from 5 to 6:30 over at Seaside 1. In addition to continuing the conversation corners down in front of the post office periodically, those wouldn't be set in stone, those would be sort of pop-up. Okay, and we had also talked about at the select board office hours that we might have a department head or maybe even a committee head, something like that as well. Do we still want to do that, or do we want to start out as just a couple of select board members there for the first or second couple meetings? Brian?
I think that the sooner we get the public engaged with the both the departments and the select board, the better off we're gonna be. So if we can have, you know, pop-up or, you know, Thursday at 5 o'clock at Laughing, or whatever it is, with the department, or right here at Seaside 1 with the department head. And there's no set agenda, we'll just make that decision at some point. Chuck Dam there and Ann Harrison's there, okay? Just to chat, or Ann's not there. She's in charge of, Ann and John are gonna be in front of the post office all winter long.
Yeah, that's you, Brian, that's your.
Oh, no, I never said I would. I told you I was fair weather in the summer kind of guy.
I've got a question.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we set this up here at Town Hall, downstairs in the hall?
We talked about that, and the thought was if somebody comes in wanting to discuss something that they do not want in the middle of a public venue, that was the thought there, and we
I
can-
don't know that we have to be that risk averse. I mean, I think the primary initiative is to get out in front of the folks that are around, the public, and get that exposure. And I don't know how many people come into the town hall on Thursday nights.
It's pretty quiet.
Okay,
Except that
It's pretty quiet.
preliminary voting will be going on, won't it?
well, that's a problem.
That'll end, I think, at 4:30. I think it'll be over by the time.
Okay.
Oh,
Well, could that be our pop-up? I mean, do we want to have a pop-up, you know, like we did Festival by the Sea, because that's where the people were? Do we
Yeah.
want to have a conversation corner sometime during early voting?
Can we do it here?
It's been pretty
Can we do
light.
that,
I
or
was
is it
legal.
against the rules?
I was just gonna
Is it
say, I
against the
don't know
rules?
if we have to,
No, because you're not in the polling place. I mean, you're not in the room where the people are
And
voting.
we're not campaigning.
They'll be set up in here, so if you were downstairs
Mhm.
at a table in the hall, that would be fine.
Okay.
well, oh, yes, okay.
It hasn't been a flood of people.
Yeah, yeah.
The early voting is like a week, I forget the dates now, I should have that, but because it's stretched out over a fairly long period, it's trickles.
So in the last, when we just had an early voting for the September election, was there one day or time that was busier than?
I could check with Diana on that. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Not sure.
And I misspoke, it's not the first and third, it's the second and fourth Thursdays that we discussed. Because I think the third Thursday's potentially a meeting if we need, we'd set that up. So poor John's never gonna get back to his Thursday evening. Maybe.
And the other thing too is I think on these department heads, maybe it's just when something starts to percolate,
Mm-hmm,
okay, that people are starting to talk about. In this case, it'd be the culvert and School Street, okay, make Chuck available, or Chuck wants to be available. If nothing's going on in town, there's no reason to drag a department head out. Maybe that's something to think about.
We could
It's
also
also-
align it with budgets, I mean, we're gonna be discussing budgets at some
Mhm.
point, and what, before or after they go before the finance committee, maybe that's an opportunity for the department head to be available.
Right, but it's also an opportunity just for you to have an
Yeah.
informal conversation with the department head while you're waiting for others to show up.
right, which is a nice way
There's
for
value
everybody
in
to
that
get,
all by
yes,
itself.
yeah.
I just think that here is the most prominent arrangement to get to chat with people, because they're coming in, and the chance that they would stop by and chat for a couple of minutes is a lot higher than if they have to go someplace else, because they have to first be aware of that. And all of that is, I think, a challenge.
Certainly, there's more of a chance for a
Absolutely,
chance
yeah.
encounter here than over at Seaside One.
Yeah, so I'm in favor of doing that, at least for a start, to see how that works in terms of exposure.
And, thoughts?
I'm thinking about sitting at a table, wishing there were somebody to talk to.
Is that an advocate for being a department head, or another one of us?
Well, that's, if we're sitting down at a table in the lobby, then chances are we'll be sitting there on our own. If we're over at Seaside One, where there's a little more room, then you sit with a department head or a committee member, or Allison Onholt White from Sustainable, something. Just,
Well, you'd be sitting with the department head here, too.
well, but down in the entry,
Yeah, I don't know, so we can.
The
I just wanna throw
acoustics there are
something out.
really weird.
Acoustics are a
The
little tough.
acoustics
the
are
acoustics are
weird.
very interesting
The other thing I
down
want
there.
to throw out is
Yeah,
that
because
sometimes
you have
town
that little
hall
dome
meetings
there.
Okay, we gotta go one at a time,
Yes.
because
are
otherwise,
more relaxed
so-
outside of town hall. It can be intimidating to sit here. If you're sitting, I mean, I know, I talked to Glenn Vega, okay, a while ago, obviously.
mhm.
And he had offered, if you want to meet here have some coffee and meet some business leaders here, by all means. I mean, maybe we reach out to a couple of, hey, can you give us a table for an hour? We'll be sitting at Beach Street, or we'll be sitting at Callis, or we'll be sitting at the Bluebird. Come by, stop by. It's just,
That's a really nice
we're
idea.
moving
Yep.
out of our,
Yep.
okay, domain, and more
That's a
into
good idea.
a more personal touch. I mean, other than inviting them into my living room, which, by the way, was clean today, I think it gives you a more personal touch.
Mhm.
I'll take the Legion.
Greg, you were going to say something, sorry.
No, it's coming on, it's fine.
Okay,
Are there any fall events that we want to tag along with, like we did with Festival by the Sea? Is there anything other than early voting,
early voting, some school events.
Wobbling goblins.
Halloween, ooh, that's a scary
Well,
thought.
there is the,
But-
PTO event,
Okay.
that's the Memorial School Fall Family Festival that was on the agenda tonight.
That'd be a good opportunity.
That, you know,
I'll be at the cardboard boat race.
you know,
That's not hopefully soon.
No, it's 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Burr. Okay.
And there's usually a couple hundred people there, by the way.
No, that's another good opportunity,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
just saying, what's already happening that we could
Right.
kind of parachute.
We have we have Christmas by the Sea in early December.
Mhm,
Yep, yep,
Okay.
yep,
mhm.
that's early December. Then it gets too cold. Then we gotta come to it.
Well, as Brian said, then we
Yeah.
can go to one of the local, we could even, I
We just have to
mean,
become more approachable, I think.
no, and I
Boat
think
race is
you're
good.
right.
I like the boat
But
race.
I think
When
it would
is
be
the
helpful
vote?
to start by continuing to go where they are. So, cause we, you know, the police chief, God love him, he's holding these hours pretty regularly, and I don't think a lot of people show up when they're,
Mhm.
like you said, when they're at town hall. The Captain Dusty's thing was great because people want to go to Captain Dusty's, so,
Okay, so to that end, why don't we, Debbie, would you be able to send to the board, dates for a few of these events coming up? And then what we can do is just say who wants to do what. Brian's already got the cardboard race, but maybe
Already got my
somebody
color
should be
selected.
there to pull them out of the water.
That's why I bring my daughter along.
Okay.
No, actually, the harbor master will be there. I mean, it's well
Yeah,
organized.
no, I've been to it.
Yes, so, okay, let's do that, and then we can just toss out, so for right now, do we tentatively table the office hours over at Seaside One, or do we do that in addition to the,
Why don't we publish one and see what happens?
okay. All right, and I'm happy to do one. If anybody else, we did say if 2 members want to be there, and then we can
I'll
see
be
if, then we can see if a department head might wish to join us. Sound good? Okay, so if that's the 2nd or 4th, let's see, what is the 4th Thursday? I think we're kind of late to do it. The 4th is the 22nd. That's a little too short notice. So that puts us to the 13th of October, which might be the planning
Planning board,
board's event. Or the 27th. It might, even if it is the planning board's event, I wonder if that might not be a
place for us to.
good place for us to go.
I think either way, so if they have it on the 12th, we could be a place people can come to the day after,
Yeah.
and if not, we ask for a table at the high school while they're
Yeah.
there. Yeah, that's a great idea.
So what we can say is select board office hours, we don't have to have it just at Seaside One. Office hours, 5 to 6 Thursday,
Somewhere.
30,
Stay tuned.
somewhere.
Stay tuned.
We're just moving target.
Yeah, we don't want to, we don't want anyone to just anticipate.
Okay, so, October 13th, I will do that with whomever else.
What date is that?
It's Thursday, October 13th,
I think I'm available.
and, just so long as we don't have more than 2 of us, is my feeling. Not that we would necessarily, we could do it without discussing,
We'll
but
be
I
at-
think
we'll-
optics, it's better not to have too many. Does that sound good?
TBD?
Okay, yes, it'll either be at, well, we'll figure out, yes, TBD location. All right. That brings us to any more liaison updates?
I can come, yeah, I'm basically dealing with water. at all levels of purity.
Yep,
I know that certainly the pipes are going along fine, School Street. I know that that project is on schedule. But we want to schedule a tour of the water treatment plant.
I would like to.
And
attend
that should
I
happen
would love
sometime in the next couple of weeks. It's best if it is done during working hours, because the guys that are working there will be there.
When it's colder, I would think.
And Chuck and Nate, I mean, they can be pretty flexible. So I can either solicit some times that are good, because they're pretty flexible, most of their schedules, or I can get a couple of dates from them and send them to you. How do you want to do this to try and work something out?
If you're, if we could not do a Wednesday or a Friday, that would help me out. And if so, then I'll try to work around that. I mean, my schedule is a bit fluid, but those
Well,
tend to be the busy days.
That leaves a lot of other days.
One or two.
Okay, all right. So I'll send everybody an email within the next 24 hours or so, and I'll say, I'll pick out some dates. This will happen in sometime in the next 2 weeks.
Excellent, thank you.
And it'll be a Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday.
And if you get enough advance notice, Brian,
And we'll
and
make,
it's cold enough, or we give you a mask?
Well, you know, just as long as heat isn't too,
we'll make it later on in the day, like
yeah, anytime after
like
4
3
works, man.
or 3:30 or
I can
something.
leave work early, you know,
Okay.
I can leave for, 4:15.
Well, I
Okay,
don't know if we can make it that late, but we'll make it later in
I can,
the
you know,
afternoon.
and, oh, by the way, if it's once every couple of weeks or something like that.
Oh, this is,
You know, by the way, I lost my job at the Lifetime Gym because of this, doing work at the town, for the town, so.
all right.
The sacrifices we
you
make.
can join the MAC, because the MAC is continuing to be up and running.
I was refereeing there at the Lifetime Gym on Wednesday nights, and then all of a sudden SLV comes up,
Oh gee,
and we were doing
Yeah.
3 Wednesdays a month. So I lost my membership is what the real problem was.
okay, so, Board of Health update, I sat in on that until I had to come here to our meeting, and they were discussing, readdressing the bylaws we have for various sized farm animals and the zoning. And then I came over here, so there you go, that's my update. All right, anybody else? All right, Greg, you're up.
Okay, thank you. So at a few meetings back, we talked about the tree policy. So the DPW, actually, they already have, they're doing some additional outreach to the tree companies, making sure they're aware. Friends of Trees has offered to help, and they've done some publicity, working with Tiffany and getting some additional information out on the website, pushing that out a bit, and then possibility of doing a flyer that goes to all households. Just giving people a heads up on the tree policy. We might use the winter newsletter for that.
How about at town meeting? When they put out
Yeah, you could-
information, can we do
Yeah, there
something
could be a
at town
handout.
meeting, also hand out?
Yes, there could be a flyer there.
Yep.
So that's a good suggestion. So efforts continue to get the word out on what the tree policies are and asking people's compliance. Item 2, just reviewing the goal setting session that you had last week, and continue to work on identifying the action steps under each goal. But you did identify the 5 goals. First one being advancing confidence in and credibility of town governance. 2 is preserving small town character, while addressing housing, economic, and conservation needs. 3rd strategic goal is adapting to the challenges climate change is bringing to us. 4th one is maintaining fiscal policies and spending discipline despite it is currently an inflationary time, and also many pressing needs that we have, a lot of competing needs for the dollars that we do have. And then the 5th overall strategy is maintaining and improving municipal infrastructure, and also planning for long-term facility needs of the town.
Not much.
Yes, so good list, yes, there's a lot there. You also identified the importance of being consistent with the master plan, and that being a sort of a foundational document that steers us as we work on these 5 areas. So that's all good progress, and like I say, at your next session, drill down a little more on actual action steps for each one.
Would you like us to send you some in advance of our next meeting, or are you, like, how would you like to go about collecting the potential next steps? Are you gonna come in with them, or we can send you some ideas ahead of time?
It'd be great if people can
Okay.
send ideas ahead of time, and then I'll compile those and make them available for that meeting.
So, October 3rd. Is that what you said, the next meeting?
So did we talk about another special meeting?
I thought it was special meeting.
Okay, so the next special meeting would be, that would be, if we're going to the 3rd,
That Thursday, right?
Thursday, that's the 20th of October. Okay, so 10/20.
So just for clarification, we had already scheduled a meeting for October 6th for the governance project,
Huh?
correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And so this would be one to focus on basically the other goals. Right. Okay, just want to be clear.
Let's see. That one was set for 4 o'clock, because I had an event that evening.
Right.
So we're doing that. But this, are we going to be working on goals that time?
So that one was specifically for
The master plan.
the governance project.
Governance project, right.
Is that the,
I didn't have that on my calendar, so,
I had it on
I
the
have
6th.
This
the
was
6th at
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock, and
Okay.
it was,
Sue Beckman.
Right.
Okay, that's the
Yeah.
follow-up for that?
alrighty, so.
And then we're proposing one on October 20th.
20th.
And
to
we
work on
can
the
choose
others.
whatever time we want.
There goes the Manchester Club again. Yeah, well, let's make it earlier then.
We can do that,
All right,
alright,
it
so,
was last Thursday night.
so
I
let's,
know that.
I was talking to Ken Davis, he said, oh, what was that?
Do both at 4 p.m.,
4 so now we are,
4:30, if that's a little better.
This is October 20th.
20th.
I gotta use my phone, I can't use that. So October 20th at 4 o'clock, is that what we're looking at, right? 6, I've got that on there. So October 20th, we're gonna try that at, are we doing 4 or 4:30?
It doesn't matter to me.
Well, John, what's easier for you?
Yeah, I'm good for either one, anytime up to 6:30.
Okay, Brian, what's easier for you?
Whatever.
Okay. Are we saying this is an hour, hour and a half, 2? What do you think we'll need for goal setting? Probably,
20th, a couple of hours.
yeah. So why don't we do 4? And that'll get you out of there, all right, John?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay. All right, 4 to 6 goal setting on the 20th. Okay. Oh, well, we'll go down to the Legion afterwards, just kidding. So, okay. And we will get our ideas to you well in advance of that. So, okay, why don't we give a due to Greg by time on that? So if we want to get goal setting to Greg, why don't we say the 13th, which is the week before? Does that sound good? Okay. Greg, does that give you?
That'll work.
Okay, super. See, I'm learning.
You're doing awesome.
All right, Greg. Meeting?
Yep, fall town meeting, obviously you spent time this evening on the zoning amendments, which will be the focus of the meeting. November 14th is the date. As you know, there's one citizen petition article so far that calls for a possible recall provision for elected officials, so that'll be on the docket as well. There are a few other items that are possible to consider. One is the fire chief is looking for approval for use of the vehicle fund, the dollars that have been set aside for departmental vehicles to order a new ambulance. And the reason why this is potentially coming up earlier is just the long lead time now. Looking like a 2-year lead time for a new ambulance. So he's a little nervous about that kind of lead time and anxious to get that underway if that's of interest and a possibility. So that's one additional article. Another one, something you need to talk about. We haven't talked about this recently. The folks in Hamilton are willing to reconsider relocating the road to that location that was voted on a year and a half ago. They put the proviso that they're looking for the town of Manchester to help fund some of that. They haven't given us a figure, but I hope to have that in the proposed figure from them in the next week or so. So that's another item that potentially could go on the docket.
So that would tie in nicely, actually, with the Water Resource Protection Task Force.
What happened to their bonded money?
So the bond folks agreed to give them
Extension?
an extension.
Oh, okay, all right, this is interesting.
Yeah, so yeah, they were feeling under the pressure of that, but they had follow-up conversations, and they're able to get an extension.
How much of an extension? Could this be on our, go to the annual town meeting rather than the special?
So they don't want to do that because they still have to get special legislation. So it is Chapter 97 lands, Article 97 lands. So it requires legislative approval as well.
Okay.
So it would work fairly well if we have a meeting in November, then they could tee it up
Right.
for January with the new legislative session.
How would we fund it?
Well, you could fund it out of fund balance, is one.
Because it depends how much money they're looking for,
Right.
so we don't know.
And if it's enough that it has to come out, can't be handled from fund balance, then
How much, what's the ballpark number in fund balance? I don't know. Is it
Fund balance, we have around 4 million.
how much?
4?
million.
And they,
So, I mean,
yeah.
we're talking, you know, a couple 100,000.
Yes, yeah, nowhere near that kind of,
No.
okay.
That might be interesting to look into from the perspective of the ponds over there and the watershed or sheds that play into that.
Yeah, the water task force has certainly discussed that and pushed that around a little bit. This was kind of a sidebar discussion with all of this, and Hamilton was pretty much focused on, this is what we're doing, you had your shot, but they had this money deadline.
Yep, I remember that.
And it always was curious to me why, you know, to build this road, moving it, it's gonna cost certainly more money than just paving the road that's there.
Right.
Correct.
And so they were prepared, I don't know how, to spend money on that. I don't know all of the finances. but,
They were playing nice, is what it was.
Yes.
They were being very good neighbors.
So, and anyway, yeah, the water task force is aware of that. They, some noise there, but they just wanted to do what they wanted to do, so it has not been a topic in the past.
Well, I think that was, the way it was handled, or the way, well, they got beat up
Mhm.
inappropriately, in my opinion. And the fact that they're even potentially coming back, if we could possibly get a way to further protect the water there, it might be a good opportunity.
Yes,
I think it's worth revisiting.
it's worth a serious discussion, I think, you know.
Does everybody think that's a reasonable?
Yes, I do.
You don't always get a second chance.
No?
And this is our third.
That's true.
Something's telling us to do something.
Let's hope third's the charm.
Yep.
Okay, all right, thank you, Greg. Yes, I guess that board is amenable to pursuing this.
Is this something we should involve the finance committee in sooner rather than later?
Yep.
FinCom, Concom, planning board?
Less so the other two.
Yeah.
Because it's all in Hamilton.
When do you think you're gonna know the number, Greg? What's,
I hope by next week.
okay. And this is, of course, this is an ask. These aren't necessarily, right, it's just, can you help us with this?
Right. Right. It's all
Okay.
subject to negotiation, but yes.
Yeah.
Do we need them for anything later on?
Say that again?
Do we need Hamilton for anything later on?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we want to protect the
Right.
larger watershed.
Certainly,
Then it seems there's some
the bulk of our
synergy.
a good portion of our watershed certainly is in Hamilton.
So it
Yeah.
seems there's synergy here and we ought to just explore.
Well, this mostly benefits us, so,
It does.
okay.
So then another possibility, again, not something we have talked about at any great length, but TIFs, or tax incremental financing arrangements. So basically, it's used by communities to help typically a larger development that is being proposed in town to say, you're gonna do a significant improvement to a property, and instead of evaluating you at 100%, assessing you at 100% value from day one, you ramp it up over time. And so there's a two-step process. The voters would have to authorize you to enter into TIF negotiations, and then you would do it on a case-by-case basis and come to terms with a particular project. Obviously, the cell signaling technology project would be a prime candidate for something like this. And you know, what's in it for the town? Well, perhaps they would pay for many of the utility improvements in exchange for a TIF, something like that. That would be a possibility. But again, step one is to first have the voters authorize you to consider such arrangements, and then you do the negotiations. And then,
So they're not looking for this at this point. This is just a tool that we could use to.
I've had one conversation with them about it.
Oh, you have already?
Yes.
Okay. So
Just when they talked about the utility, you know, they said, well, can the town put in money? And I said, well, frankly, we might be more interested in giving you a break on your taxes and you paying for it rather than us coming up with new money. It's just it can be an easier way.
It's a development tool that's used all over.
Yes, it is.
And I'm a fan of TIFs myself.
It's a frequent tool that's used in communities that typically have more development than we We have.
It sounds kind of revenue neutral to me. In other words, you get less tax revenue, but the money is, but they're.
Right, so you still get a bump because you still get the higher value that's there. You're just not going to 100% right away.
Right,
So you're delaying some revenue, but you're still getting a bump in revenue.
And but there's a sort of a quid pro quo then.
Is
So
it a
the-
color of money issue, or is it a revenue recognition timing issue?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part.
Is it a color of money issue, you know,
I don't know
money
what that
from,
means.
money coming from different buckets issue, or is it
Yeah,
just
that's what-
revenue recognition timing? This TIF, it just,
Can you explain the
Yeah.
revenue reckoning
Um,
issue?
if they pay us taxes, that's revenue to the town.
Right,
And so, how that gets accounted for is called revenue recognition sometimes. And is it a timing of that? So, like you said, we would, get less revenue quarters 2 through 4 of a given year and get more revenue later on? Or is it just is it a changing of when we see the revenue,
No,
or is it an actual production?
you're foregoing some revenue.
Okay.
you're foregoing revenue, but they're paying for, would
Infrastructure.
assumedly
Right.
pay for some of this,
So
some of
that's
this.
a color
But
issue.
So if you don't do the TIF, you get all the revenue, but now you've got to pay for the sewer.
mhm.
Right.
So if you
then
ask
and
me,
the sewer money would
It's
come out of a
different
different
buckets.
bucket, so it's a different
Yes.
bucket, it's color of money.
Yes.
so
Yeah.
it's different buckets, but it may be kind of revenue neutral, which is kind of the way I see it.
Right, you could do it, that is revenue.
It doesn't have to be revenue
No,
neutral,
but
that's what the
it's-
negotiation is.
It's a
Okay.
negotiation.
And the ones that you read about are the ones that distinctly do not turn out to be.
They don't work
revenue.
out.
Yes.
But Brian, you've seen these?
Oftentimes,
Oh, yeah, I mean,
oftentimes communities will give up a little bit of revenue as an enticement for that development to
I
take
think that's
place.
the word right there, is an enticement.
Because
Okay.
it
Yeah,
does, long-term, you're getting something that you didn't have before.
The value of the land is X or 0, okay? When you have a developer coming in who's willing to develop this land, the value of the land is gonna go up. We're not, okay?
Right.
And to, over time, see the 100% value of the land, we're just gonna incrementally, tax increment financing, okay? And it shows that we're open for business,
Right,
is
so
what it
that-
amounts to.
So that's one way of doing it, and what Greg is suggesting, which I really like, it gives them the speed they need. Maybe they could do something faster and we would forego some revenue, so they could do it faster perhaps than we could.
Oh, it's
So
it's
do
private
we-
sector.
Do we hold a bond or anything in terms of taxes that would be owed?
No,
Okay, so in other words, getting infrastructure items done or whatever, that is your bond. Or your guarantee of,
right. So
Offsetting them.
if you come to those kind of terms, then
I
yes.
think what happens is, if we show that we're prepared to work with you, mitigation is gonna be easier too on the other end, okay?
That's
I mean, I think real estate development's the only industry where you can ask for something in return, okay? I used to call it shaking down a development.
Well, we don't do
But
that
we call
here,
it
but.
mitigation, we call it
Yeah.
mitigation, and it works, okay? So if cell signaling is, or someone, XYZ Corporation, is willing to come in and say, well, this is what we need from you, but what are you gonna give us in return? And if we already have the vehicle set up to do TIFs, okay, it's a lot easier to negotiate.
So that's my question.
I'm
not
gonna
just-
go to Ann, because
sorry,
she's
yeah.
been wanting to. Go ahead.
My problem with enticement is it seems to me that self-signaling in particular is already enticed.
Yeah, I agree. They've already made a decision.
Yeah, well, I mean, they could resell it and go someplace else, but the impression that they give me is that they want to be here.
Yes,
Okay,
that is true.
but to that point though, Ian,
They,
to
They may not-
discuss what we want from them in return,
Mhm.
okay, is, all right, okay, you're here, we want you here. There's no mistake, the town voted for this back in May, we want you here. Now we want more from you, okay? And in return, we were going to forego 100% tax liabilities for you so that you can bring in and you can improve, all of a sudden the LCD is now improved a little bit more,
They made the decision in July, they spent $17 million.
But one of the issues that, and I don't want to keep on this, because we're just talking about, are we potentially amenable to further discussions
Sure.
and tips? And so we will be discussing this more at the next meeting. So perhaps what we can do is get a little more information and how we might be looking at
That's what I was gonna ask for is, I personally need a little more help understanding what legal or regulatory thing we don't have in place that other towns do. TIF permission, I mean, whatever it is, it sounds like we don't have something that other towns do, and I need a little background.
So it's a local option law,
Local option law.
so,
Can you send us some information on that?
yeah, no, I can give you, there's good summary information on this.
Okay, great.
I can put together a little package.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, Anne, you had one more question on this before we move
But
on?
one more, yeah.
Okay.
Thinking about the dynamics of this upcoming town meeting, where we have a lot of complicated planning board issues, some of which relate to development. And I'm not sure that, I'm concerned that the voters won't have the bandwidth.
That's a fair question. Yeah, and it doesn't have to go on the fall. You could do it at the annual.
Might be a good idea, especially, a lot of planning to get through.
Right.
So I think we do have the time, but I would still like to get some information and we can talk about this at the next, but I think that's a really good point, Ann.
No question.
Okay, so now brings us to 40B update?
Yeah, so 40B update, as expected, SLV has filed an appeal to the Housing Advisory Committee. It's the state board that is the next step in 40Bs. So as you know, the ZBA issued a denial of the project, so the developer is appealing that denial and will be seeking an approval before the HAC. So that process will get underway. It'll take probably the better part of a year to complete. It will it consists of the town and the applicant being the principal parties involved. And it's a de novo hearing, meaning that it's starting over, basically. It's not based on the record established at the ZBA. So we, as defenders of the denial, the town will be in a position then to put in expert witness testimony as to why we feel it does not warrant approval. Obviously, the applicant will be doing the opposite, putting in evidence and expert testimony, advocating for approval. Other third parties can petition to be full parties in the proceedings. They can petition the HAC to be a full party, meaning that they could put in evidence as well.
So they have to petition.
They have to petition and get approval from the HAC. They can either petition for full party status or what's called parties of interest. So full party status means that they can submit testimony, pre-file testimony from experts, as well as comment on evidence that has been filed either by the town or the applicant. A party of interest only can do the latter. They don't put in any evidence of their own, but they put in basically commentary or sort of rebuttal testimony or confirmation testimony on briefings, I should say, on the evidence that others have submitted.
Is the appeal SLV submitted? Will we have that on our website or?
It is on the website. I think it got posted today. If not, it'll be tomorrow.
It's been available for a couple of days now, right? I saw it last week.
You did?
It came Friday, I think, or late
That's just
Thursday.
under, okay.
But yes, it'll, if it's not there already, it will be on the website.
And to that point, the draft, the denial was drafted in such a way, town council took great pains to make sure that a lot of evidence could be reintroduced as opposed, or introduced, as opposed to, as you say, everything that we have, that we just, all the records that were basically expunged is what it amounts to.
Right.
But the denial is drafted in such a way as it opens the door for these points to be taken up again.
Yeah, I'm not seeing, I see that it was posted that he did appeal on the 15th, but I don't see the appeal itself.
I can forward it to you.
Oh, I can wait.
Yeah.
Or if you actually, thank you, yeah, that'd be nice, I would appreciate that, Brian, thank you.
Can you add some other names to that?
Yeah,
Sure.
maybe the whole,
I'll send it to the whole board, what the heck.
thank you, and it's good to know, I know you all did a really good.
Who pays for all of this?
So that was my next
There we go.
comment. So this will cost the town a significant amount of money. It will not be inexpensive. It will be expensive.
What is significant? Six,
We're well into six figures.
well into six?
Well, 6 figures as opposed to, well, I mean, the health is part of our water resource.
That was, actually, we took that into consideration way back when.
Yeah.
You were there, conversations too. Where do we want to properly spend the money?
Yep.
Okay, back in December.
Yep. Okay. And pickleball.
Brian already covered that.
Yeah. All right, wonderful.
There's a hand up. Carly Cook has a hand up.
Oh, okay. Carly, go ahead and unmute yourself, put your hand down, state your name and your address, please.
Good evening, it's Carly Cook, 1 Masconomo Street. I just had a question about, is there any hope that because of the litigation process that he might back down based on the costs? Has that, because it is going to be costly, obviously for us, but for him as well. So is there any precedent of this being a situation where they just end up backing down instead of going all the way, through the hearing process?
Right.
Thank you.
I would not put a lot of hope in that.
I would think that his ego's engaged.
I think,
It's his business.
right, this is their business, they factor this in.
Right.
But, I mean, that's a judgment call that ultimately that they can make at any time.
But in short, probably not.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Carly. Okay, any other comments from public? Comments from the board?
So just a question, do we have our conversation corner this Saturday? At the post office, or next Saturday? We were gonna do that sometime.
Yeah, I thought we'd said the 24th.
Yeah, I think so. I am not here the 24th, I'm in New York.
You're just a globetrotter.
Yeah, I am.
He is,
Never-
and I think that I am supposed to be working.
I mean, we can put it off for the next Saturday.
I can be there at 11, but I can't be there much before that.
Yeah, we decided kind of like 10 to 12.
Not sleeping in.
Where are we?
My computer is gone
I
black.
have a
which
puppy
means-
who has to go to puppy class, and I can't do it on Monday
And
night,
I'm
and I
impressed
can't
that
do
you
it
would
on
do
Tuesday
that out
night.
loud.
All right.
Why don't we, I'm working this weekend, so I definitely can't do it. And Kathy, so, okay, why don't we just go ahead and go to the 13th, that Thursday, let that start as our first, and, does that work for everybody, or do you wanna look at
And
another?
you and I are covering that one, right? The
We're
13th.
covering that. Just the two of us, Brian,
Just the two.
unless we want to invite, exactly, right up on that. Sounds like a trivia question.
It should be.
Should be. Anything else?
So we'll let things ride until the 13th, fine.
Sound good? Okay. Any other, anything else to be discussed? If not, may I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Second. Okay, moved by Ann, seconded by Brian. Roll call vote. Brian?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Becky says yes. Thank you all very much who attended the meeting out there and in here. Debbie, thank you.